Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Peter. Of all the introductions I've had, that's certainly the most recent. It's an old line, but a gold line, anyhow. I'll sprint. I just want to say I'm breaking from my finely crafted speech because I know who's in the room. I can't lie anymore, and that. But one of the first people I rang in today was Jeff Pitt, and he was my client at the TAB, and TAB's been sold. Ollie Clark was at the gas company. Gas company's gone. Xinghai Tan was at State Bank. I mean the good bank. And that's gone. Away, whatever. Then I've got in the room a competitor in Jeff Reid. He worked at George Patterson. He ran that there for a while. I can confess to you, Jeff, I was the one that came up with, I used to call you Salvation Jane. You were Patterson's curse. I can confess. And then I see here David Motteram, the ever-charming David Motteram, who, when he worked at Stratco, I begged for the business and he essentially told me to piss off and that, so... No, he didn't. He's a good friend. But I tried and that, so anyhow, which is probably that. And then I've got Meg Honour here. Now, Meg, Meggie is clearly... Meg and I have worked together. She's a very, very fine artist, a very great woman, and I'm really privileged to have worked with her. I'm glad you're here, Meg. Good to see you, babe. Yeah. We used to have good Christmas parties, didn't we? Yeah. Okay. So have fun, do good work, make a fair profit. Witty and I, now, someone's going to have to show me how to use this again, because I'm a techno button on the right. So when I started, and I'm not going to go over all the other, but KWP started in 1991, and that's probably of some interest to you. Phil Hoffman's here too. He was another client in the old days. He was chairman of South Australian Tourism Commission, and he hated everything we did. No, he didn't. But it's good to see you, Phil, and he's a Port Adelaide supporter, so I don't care about that. Okay. So when Peter Withy and I, there's a bloke called Peter Withy. He's a writer, creative director like me in advertising. He's got a very, very long career and he's done great stuff working in different places and different parts of the world. And I hired him as a junior and he ended up hiring me as a partner. And we started off this company. We had this dream. We had a dream. In 1991, when the recession we had to have was still going, and we worked in multinational companies. He worked in Leo Burnett and I worked at Clemenger BBDO. But we were old friends. And I said to him, we got together one day at the Bangkok restaurant, which is also gone, on Rundle Street. I said, mate, I've got this thought. I'm going to start my own agency. And I was 41 at the time. And I thought, well, if I screw it up at 41, I've still got a chance to go back and get a job, with someone who's serious. And so here he was. He was a creative director. I was a creative director. He was a writer. I was a writer. And usually in those days, and I think Jeffrey to bear this out, if people were starting up companies, you'd have a creative person and you'd have a suit or a business person. And we used to call suits blisters because they only come out after the hard work has been done. So when we started, there was a fair amount of form about us, and they said, well, two creative directors, what they'll do is they'll hang around each day and just criticise each other's curtains and that. But I knew at that time, because a lot of clients in Adelaide, and one of them was a gas company, Ollie, and there were other people there, because of the recession, there were marketing departments had been hacked to pieces. Boards, which were usually run by doctors, lawyers, accountants, who have got that much marketing acumen in their body, they were just saying, we've got to cut costs, we've got to cut costs, we've got to cut costs. And so there were fantastic companies in South Australia that completely lost a generation of marketing and salespeople. And I think even today we're still suffering because of that. So we thought, and there were clients ringing me after work saying, Andrew, can I catch up? Can we go for a beer? Yes. And I want to talk about things and that. And they were finding the structure of business in those days through advertising agency. They were being decimated because of the recession, and they were finding the structure of advertising agencies was too presidential. It was slow, and you had to go through these systems and all that sort of thing. So it became easy to me. The thing that really struck me was put the people who have the ideas in direct contact with the people that want the ideas, which goes back to the origins of advertising. Really, it's not new, but it had been forgotten because many of the companies had turned into corporations and they were being taken over by companies that were putting them all together and doing all that sort of stuff. But the spirit of advertising is about selling stuff, marketing stuff, getting it out there. So we decided to do just that, and we good luck. There's our first agency on Carrington Street. It was it used to be the Adelaide Oyster Bar, owned by the Domenico family. It's a fish and chip shop. I can't think of a better place to start. There's the company car. It's a true story. True story. When I left Clemenger BBDO, I was on the national board, creative director and things like that. And one of their clients was Mercedes-Benz, and we're all expected to drive Mercedes-Benz. Wasn't the hardest thing I've ever had to do in my life. But then I went and knocked on the door of it. We had no clients, and we went there and he said, I'd probably give you the business except you drove up in a Mercedes-Benz. So we got rid of that. We bought a car. That wasn't the first one, but we bought a Maxima, a Nissan Maxima, and Witty would have it 2 weeks, and I'd have it the next 2 weeks. And the other times we just go to work. Now, 2 CDs, starting a business, no clients. I had 2 kids still at school, paying school fees. Witty had just remarried, had his first child and found his wife was pregnant again, and we had $80,000 in the bank, and we had 3 months. What could possibly go wrong? What could possibly go wrong? And we had a plan B was we were going to do contras with butchers and pubs and things like that. So that was it. So what we did, there's the building. But by the way, the building is historically important to me. It was situated just down the road from the Italian Club, the Women's Temperance Society, and then directly over the other side was a massage parlour called Happy Hands. Most tastes were catered for. I just think, you think about that. Now, the ubiquitous first cheque. 1991, when we started, was also... What else happened in 1991? Mighty Adelaide Crows. They started. And the first job we got was from 5AA, and they wanted a bumper sticker. So here we are, these really creative guys starting a business, and you notice the satanic number of the cheque, 666. Ooh. We got to write the bumper sticker and design the bumper sticker for the Adelaide Crows, and the words were, "Go Crows, go." Whoa. That's worth $600, isn't it? I mean, that was the first cheque, and we celebrated that, I can tell you. Things are funny, isn't they? Talk about fun. You can't read that. course, an advertising person put together. We never had titles when we started, because we've been in multinationals, and there's intergalactic global director of strategy, or, those sort of things. So Witty and I said, we're just doing ads, it's really not brain surgery. So we went along quite well with all that. And then one day, one of the younger people, as the company grew, came up to me and he said, his name was Chris Morris, and of course we called him Jenny Morris, because we're funny people. And he said, my clients are asking me what my title is. And I said, well, you're Chris Morris. He said, yeah, but I don't have a title. What am I? And I said, well, mate, what do you mean? Who cares? I mean, none of us have titles. He said, yeah, but your name's on the door. And I thought, oh, well, fair enough. And that. I went away, and he kept pestering. He came back. The third time he came back, I said, I've got a title for you. You're Governor General. And he said, you're not taking me seriously. I said, no, but if you want a title, you're Governor General. But then an idea came out of stupidity. He did resign. But we thought, oh no, why don't we give everyone titles that are stupid? So I became lead trombone. Witty became lead trombone. I became the harbour master, and everyone. So we picked these titles. It went very well, and it was a good opening line until we started dealing in Asia later on, and they thought we were taking the piss out of them. But anyhow, you learn as you go along. Probably the thing that the thing is that defined our company is Coopers. There's no doubt about it. They defined the KWP style of work best, and how we got the business defined how we work best. We heard, at this stage we had a little bit of the business. They used to have a honey brand called Leabrook Farms Honey, and it was pretty good. But we really wanted the beer business. Of course, we wanted the beer business. But that was with the old company I'd worked with, Clemenger, BBDO. But I'd had a whisper through my business mates that Lion Nathan was going to move in and try and buy them. And I thought, well, if that happens, they'll be the only South Australian-owned brewery left. What have we got to do? So we put together, and we only had the honey business. We didn't have anything else. So we put together this campaign. Phew, lucky it wasn't our Coopers. And we went to... we were presenting the honey work, and we went that, and to the marketing guy there, and we said, oh, by the way, we've got something for Coopers too. And he said, well, I don't handle that, and neither do you. But there's a new guy started about 2 days before called Glenn Cooper, who'd come into the business. Clearly, in my opinion, the most natural marketer I've ever met in my life. Anyhow, so we went to Glenn, and he said, oh, who are you blokes, blah, 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 blah. And we showed him this, and he said, we've heard this is going to be bought out. You've got to get on the front foot. You've got to be ready and that. And he said, well, I'll take you to meet Bill Cooper, who was the managing director. Fantastic, honourable man. So I went through it all, and Bill very calmly sat there as we presented the work to him, and he said, well, thank you very much for that, gentlemen, but you don't have the business. And we went, oh. So we went back to Carrington Street and probably went straight to the Italian club. And then we thought, well, we've really blown that. We've offended him and all that sort of thing. Glenn rang about just as we were on to our second bottle of red wine, and he said, you know that stuff you showed? Just get it quoted anyhow. Things might change. And so we went out and we quoted it. And on the day we launched that, and the day it was announced, this is before social media, we had banners on pubs. Phew, lucky it wasn't our Coopers. We had a full page in a broadsheet newspaper, which was wonderful. We had radio going, and we staged an event. We took a sign, a mobile sign, down in front of the Southwark Brewery, down there, West End Brewery, out the front, and we left it there. And the brewery workers came out there enraged, and there was a fight. We rang up today tonight and said, there's a brawl going on, you've got to get down here and get this. And it was on TV all night. And it was fantastic. I don't know. So, but then we got the business, and then they didn't have a lot of money. And Glenn used to always say, you don't have to be big to be great. He's not very tall, but you know what I mean. But he said, you don't have to be big to be great. And he used to challenge us and push us the whole time. He said, let's go for little things and build that. So we sort of got into this idea about visiting rock and roll bands and artists and that. And every time someone came to town, like a Joe Cocker or whoever it was, or Paul Killey was a recipient too, because he was a bit of a Norwood and Cooper's fan in his day. And that, we used to, we'd find out where they went, we'd send a slab, of a mixed slab. It'd be green and red, you know, sparkling and pale. And with a little letter, please take a photo of yourself drinking this, or if you want more of this, ring me. You know, it was that sort of thing. And so suddenly we started creating this almost cult thing around, and Glenn kept encouraging us. And so the most media we did in the early days for Coopers nationally was Rolling Stone magazine. And there were things like that. Because that was the audience we were talking to. They didn't want to, you know, I mean, everyone now with social media thinks, you know, edgy stuff is new. But it was edgy then, but we just didn't have the channels we've got now. And that's what we did. So, it worked. Now, in the room today is Jeff Pitt, who I mentioned before, it was the TAB. Now, I'm going to show this ad for two reasons. Jeff is one of the best clients I've ever worked with. No. The reason I'm saying that is because I've said it to him before. We did some terrific ads before, and he's got so much shit on me. I know, I just got... But Jeff, we did some great TV, running down the street, you know. Maybe a bit of a problem with the Scoutmaster might have been, you know, a pedophile. But all that sort of thing, and there's some truth in that. But I showed this ad for two reasons. Number one, you couldn't run that now, cash cow, with the TAB. But for the gentleman who introduced me today, this is the closest I've ever got to royal patronage, because the governor's wife, apparently who has a bet every now and again, liked the ad and thought she'd like a copy. So we framed it and sent it to her and that. So I think your mum's probably got a copy of that somewhere, or she's probably thrown it out there. But I do love that ad. You can't do that now because we're too correct and we can't control our own lusts and things like that. But anyway. Now this guy, I know I've driven you all nuts with him, but we did it. It was a fantastic campaign. Trev and George, that's George by the way, that campaign ran for years and years and years and years. And the RAA used to say to us, you know, we've been running that a long time and the scores kept going up. And he was used to normalise, take them from being a roadside assistance mob to an insurance company for house and contents and car and so forth and so on. And it is the most stupid strategy on earth, but one of the most successful ones. And he was fantastic. And when we stopped the ads, because a new generation of people came, and he had that had its time. You got to move on. People started complaining about it. I felt we should have sacked him. We should have run ads saying "You're sacked, George. Nobody likes you anymore." And we should have started a crowd thing going, "Do not sack George." And you could have kept it going, you know, forever and a day. And, you know, you could have George's kids, you could have his wife, you could have, you know, grandkids, you know, hello, I'm George's grandkid, you know, doing all that sort of stuff. So I thought that was quite good. I just throw in two extra ones. Lorman and Pank, another company gone out of South Australia, fantastic company. We used to do their work, and they were really... I'm now working with the guy that used to, one of the major guys there, who's now working at National Pharmacies, but they were fantastic clients. Vili is one of my finest friends, mainly on radio and that. Just a fantastic client. These brands, I tell you what, there is no such thing as good advertising agencies. There's great clients. And these people gave us the chance to define ourselves, and I'm forever loyal and ever grateful to those people. I had Glenn and Vili around at my house for dinner the other night with their wives, and having a rare old time. And I said, welcome to the house you built. And they did. I mean, it's true. They're fantastic people, though, you know, really great. Now, I want to tell you about wine accounts. What we were really famous for, and you don't know, how long I've got, Pete? 2 minutes. Oh, geez, I've got the best stuff coming too. Well, I'll do it. I've got to tell this story, though. This is about the arrogance of thinking when you've made it. Because we picked up a lot of business very quickly, and we pitched on a 2 p.m. on a Thursday for the Wolf Blass account. We were rung at 4 p.m. and told we had it, the business, and we went to the pub at 4:30 to celebrate. Our wives joined us at 7 p.m. at the House of Chow, and we spent the first year's earning on a dinner. We thought, how easy is advertising? Why hasn't anyone figured this out? We were rung at 9 a.m. in the morning by the general manager, who said the reason Wolf wasn't there yesterday, he was in Melbourne with Ray King selling the company to him. So we had the business for less than 24 hours, and that's it. But it led to other great things. I think the work we've done for Jance, for Yalumba, and people like that has been fantastic, and it's a great opportunity. So forth. I'm just going, yeah, we've done a bit of that. Yeah. When Santos got the sponsorship for Tour Down Under, we said, let's decorate the building. When we did work for them, we did that and said, basically get in there and do that and sit down and have fun. People just go there and have photographs taken. So the final thing I'm just going to show is, this was the campaign that probably got Coopers going in Sydney. We took over the whole CBD, and they were pushing distribution, getting into the CBD pubs. And we basically said, if it's not at your local, sell your house. And we did that, and there was an attitude about it, and it was fantastic. This nearly got me in jail. Drink a pity. This is for home brew. That person doesn't exist. It was made up and things like that. It went into a male brewer magazine, but then someone rat-finked on us. It got mentioned. We're in Hansard over that, and I think it's the worst thing I've ever done, but we were stupid and that. But then probably this is where we started defining Coopers locally, when they had the big share takeover attempt, you know. And we could take the local ground and say, it's all right, but, you know, we're going to bet the show down, but will Mr. Curran be there? And this, of course, was just one of those things when at that stage where it was fantastic. That was a photograph out of the Advertiser, and we took it. We turned it into an ad, went down there, and they published it. I'm told I've got to go. Just before I go, there's 4 things Witty and I wanted when we started the business. We wanted a brewery, and this is serious. We wanted a brewery, we got it. We wanted a winery, we got Yalumba. We wanted something in tourism, we got the South Australian Tourism Commission. And we wanted Victoria's Secret. 3 out of 4 ain't bad.
Well done, Andrew. We've got a few minutes, and the reason I wanted to wind Andrew up was to allow you, and I know there are a number in the room who've got some curly ones to ask Mr. Killey. So do we have any questions in the room? Oh dear. Jeff Pitt. Oh, no. Thank you very much. I was hoping, Jeff. Yep.
Go on.
The two things Andrew and I agree. Like Bruce, that's having no idea how to run anything that's gambling. So if you want to know about a horse at any time, don't ask us because we have got no idea.
Correct.
We've spent a lot of money proving that to ourselves. Yeah. I was going to ask you a very serious question. Working with governments and semi-government and private enterprise, which clients do you really enjoy working with and why?
Well, clearly, I mean, I like the sort of the work you do with people like Coopers and Vilis and Yalumba and those family-owned businesses, because the thing about it is their name is not only on the bottle, but the brand is in their blood, and there's a great passion, and I think Phil Hoffman would agree with that. So when you talk to people like that about their brand, you're in a very privileged position, because it's more than just a job. The marketing world is quite promiscuous, and it moves around a fair bit, but families and things don't like that. Having said that, the joy of working on South Australian Tourism Commission and some of the big events, given the social significance of it, has been astonishing. But let me say this, having worked with the federal government on AQUIS and DFAT, Australian Quarantine and Department of Foreign Affairs, DFAT and Trade, they were easier to work with generally than the state government of South Australia, and better. Is that honest enough?
Rob Falconer.
Yeah, well, I'm out of KWP now. There's been an MBO, but they're friends and that, yeah. Yeah, oh yeah, well, yeah.
I just wanted to know whether you had any comment about, the recent episode where Coopers did a special bond with the Baptist Association, Society, and they had that real stoush about that, and said, again, the ramifications from that. Do you have an opinion on that?
I think it depends on your age. I mean, I think a private company has got the right to do whatever they want. Whether it's advisable or not, that's another question. But if you make a decision to do it, you don't buckle. And I think they sort of buckled. That doesn't mean I don't love them. I mean, sometimes your kids aren't very good too. Yeah, or I'm not very good. But I hope there's an enduring sort of connection there that lets people forgive me for that. I think that the thing now is that what's changed is, if you spoke to Andrew Cooper now, who's Glenn's son, who's come back from Singapore where he was basically running Diageo and he's now working Coopers in Melbourne, he'd be the guy to ask that, because it's a different generation. And I think the new generation, because of social media and all those sort of things, anyone can be a publisher, anyone can have an idea, and it can move. And I think you've just got to be a bit more guarded now, sadly. So, I don't know. But probably started out as a good idea. But by the way, Coopers have sponsored bloody lot of things too, not just the Christian, whatever they were, but they do bands, they do festivals, they do all sorts of things. And they do it brilliantly. I mean, the Fringe, everything all over Australia, surfing titles, music festivals, and they've got the V8s. They've got their own foundation, for God's sake. And but I guess when you go out there publicly like that, you're going to get the haters. So that's the thing you've got to worry about. Yeah.
I'm going to ask one to wind up. Andrew, you've met some pretty interesting characters in your career, including your time in New York. I won't mention the blind taste test, but if anybody would like to know the story, come and I'll tell you. The one that I wanted to ask you about or let you share is the visa story, and the fact that you were there when the Beatles came to Adelaide, apparently.
No, well, Pete's right. Jeffrey Reed would know that Clemenger was part of BBDO when I worked there, and I got seconded to New York, and that was good. Took my family, that was great fun. Don't know if it did much for their education, my daughters, but I ended up in this really big agency as a sort of a guest creative director. There were two others, and that was good fun. But there was the chairman of the company was a good friend, and he was trying to promote me a bit, and he put me in and he said, I'm going to give you some good projects to work on. And I said, oh yeah, that's great, you know. And he gave me a group of creative people I had to direct. And he said, there's I want you to come to a meeting. He said, it's for Visa. And I said, oh yeah, I'd love to come in. He said, there's someone I want you to meet. And I said, who is it? He said, I can't tell you. You've got to come in. He said, you've got to do it. And I said, all right, okay, I'll come in. And so I went to the meeting and I've turned up and he's saying, they're coming. Suddenly the door swings open and in walks Paul McCartney. And I go, Paul McCartney. And that was when they were doing the Wings Across America tour. And what Visa did, they underwrote the tour. And they came up with the things, you can do this, you can do that. But if you want to see Wings, you can't use American Express. You've got to use a very, very aggressive American advertising. It was great. But then he said to me, he said, oh, where'd you come? He was fantastic. It was sort of weird, but he was fantastically normal. And he said, where do you come from? I said, oh, I come from Adelaide. And he said, well, that's where we had our biggest turnout. And I said, oh, yeah. And he said, here's what, he got a bit of paper, he says, here's what I will do on the ads. Very simple, here's what I won't do. And he said, but I want you to come to every show as we go across America and be there to film it, and I'll ask you afterwards, have you broken any of the rules? And I thought, oh, if I've got to do it, I've got to do it, you know. No, but it was fantastic. I mean, and then, but it was very normal. That's, anyway, does that?
Yep, that's right. Thanks, Andrew. Andrew, thank you. It was most illuminating. We worked together for a number of years at Clemenger, and I've had the privilege of knowing Andrew, and I think today, like many in the room, you've heard an insight into probably one of the treasures, if you will, of South Australia. On a sad note, and being a retail person as you are, I have to say that it would appear that the stock of our special light pen biros have run out. We must have been a sale. There's been a run on them, I think. So we've gone back to old stock. But the heartfelt thanks for your time is no less with this gift. Thank you, Andrew.
You're a good boy.